thank you all so much for joining the Sidebar member-led workshop for becoming an AI first organization. We've heard this a lot, but today we're going to get some really practical tips to be able to really, realize that, which I'm excited about. I'm Shubha. I'll be your moderator today. I'm a Sidebar member for the last, I think, 2.5 years. So pretty early on. And I see some familiar faces and names here. So hello. And I'm currently a fractional chief AI officer at an AI agent success startup called Wayfound.ai. Outside of that, I do AI transformation, agentic transformation consulting and education through workshops and consulting engagements. And I also teach a Maven course on commercializing AI agents, whose next cohort will start mid-September. So you can go online and get information if that's remotely interesting for you. Um, in so many of my talks with my clients, I've heard this term AI first come up a lot, and especially AI first from an organization come up a lot. So I'm so glad to introduce our speaker today, who will be sharing a practical guide to becoming a first AI first organization, Kia. Kia, I've had the fortune of knowing through Sidebar, but I think we've met a few times now in the last couple of months that I've actually been really excited and fortunate to be in Kia's orbit. He is obviously not only a technical maestro with his experience at Google, but and one of my favorite actually commerce companies called Minted. But right now he is the head of engineering at a very forward-thinking VC company called 50 Years, and I love the name of it. So without any further ado, let's bring in Kia into the mix, and just a couple of logistical things. Although we have a separate, section for Q&A, this is intended to be an informal workshop, so please keep your questions coming throughout. And then towards the end, we'll take a bit of a pause to get NPS feedback because we value your feedback a lot, so we can give you programming that is relevant and useful for you. Kia, take it away.
Sweet. Thanks, Sue. I'm excited to be here with all of you. Let me quickly share my screen. So as I'm presenting, Sue, if you could just let me know if people are asking questions and things like that, that'd be
Of
really
course.
helpful. But yeah, welcome to becoming an AI first organization. I'm Kia, and hopefully this will be a practical and beneficial way that you all can start implementing some of these tips and tricks in your organization and start your AI transformation. First, who the heck am I? My name is Kia. I lead engineering at 50 Years, like Suba mentioned. Before 50 Years, I was a TL for core developer at Google. So anything from ads to X, if you wanted to launch a server, wanted to build an application, you'd build it on the software and applications that my team owned and provided. And so I got to see early days what AI adoption was like from a top-down level at a large organization. And in my current role at 50 Years, we have about 100 portfolio companies, and I get to see kind of a meta view of how these different companies across industries are all implementing AI in their daily workflows, and what's working and what's not. Before Google, I was a VP of Eng and founder at this company called Mira, but that's many years ago now. So let's move on. Um, so the kind of common uh, framings that people view AI in right now, the first one is doubt. And so there are a lot of skeptics that say it's all hype, it will blow over. And then there's a lot of people that are overhyping it. Sam Altman, for example, who's like, yeah, we'll have free PhDs at a fingertip, which we sort of do in some ways. But the hype side can believe like we won't need programmers anymore, we won't need thought workers anymore. And realistically, that's causing a lot of fear across the industry. Um, that they're like, oh, AI will replace us. This is a terrifying existential thing. And this fear can be debilitating. But I'd encourage you all to have this simple mindset shift. Instead of fearing like, hey, will AI replace me? Think to yourself, how can AI help me do what I'm already doing better? AI doesn't replace people, it replaces inefficiency. And AI outcomes crucially mirror your skill as an operator. So the best outcomes come from people that, one, understand how to work with these tools really well, but also people with deep technical expertise. So see Elizabeth in the audience, she's a great coach. She can probably get ChatGPT to be a much better coach than I can, because she knows how to prompt, she knows how to evaluate greatness, and she can coax the best results out of these models. So our role as employees and people in this AI era is to think about how we can create scalable systems to improve ourselves and to really create the symbiotic relationship with these tools. So uh, just some easy ways to get that mindset shift. Start treating AI as like a core teammate. Ask it questions, bounce ideas off of your ChatGPT or your LLM. Use it as a brainstorming partner. Um, AI has been trained on the entire corpus of the internet, everything that's been written before. I think premier models are trained on something like 300 trillion words or something along the lines of that, which is totally crazy. And so it's seen a lot of stuff. It's formed patterns and it can be helpful to bounce ideas off of AI. So um, don't treat it like a novelty. Treat it as like your externalized thought process, partner. Words are hard today, apparently. Um, so the best way to get started is not the top-down approach where leadership mandates you must use AI for all the things. Let me fire half your staff and just use AI instead as a replacement. That never works. And the ways that I've seen this work best across our portfolio companies is when there's an individual or small group that starts adopting these tools, leveraging them, and then expanding out from there. And so I like to start with some really simple workflows. And so let's say we're all going to be AI evangelists in our company. Um, Bottoms up innovation is usually the most efficient and successful model for AI adoption. So I'd say just spend 10% of your day playing and experimenting with these tools, seeing what you can do to improve your day-to-day operations. So I like to think about things that consume a lot of time. So our team, we send daily updates every morning. People craft these things and think carefully about them. And I found myself spending 30 minutes of my workday preparing for a 30-minute meeting with the whole company. And it just didn't seem like a good use of time. So I used an LLM with some sources to kind of create a reusable system. And now I spend probably 1 minute curating what's output from that system instead of wasting 30 minutes. And if you think about like the salary of someone in the Bay Area, 30 minutes of time across a full work year is every day across a full work year is it's a ridiculous amount of money. And so always be thinking, how can I use these tools in this free analyst or early career person to do things for me? And that's what AI is great for. So let me show you what that looks like. Oh, and if there are questions, so would just let me know. So here's a really simple DSC Claude. And I'll zoom in so you guys can read stuff. Um, so here's a really simple example of using Claude. So Claude can integrate with a lot of tools out of the box. So can ChatGPT, so can Gemini. Gemini's natively integrated into all of G Suite. So if your team is using G Suite and you have Gemini access, you can do a lot of these things. Um, but let's say I have a hypothetical one-on-one with a coworker named Drew. I can ask the LLM to search my emails and help me prepare so that Drew and I can have a more productive meeting. Maybe Drew is my manager and I care deeply about the value and so like of this conversation. And so this allows me to really easily prepare and come into that meeting looking a lot better, saving Drew time, saving me time. Whereas in the past, I may have invested a lot of my personal time doing this. So um, these are some of the initiatives that Drew and I are actively working on. And so it's giving me a play-by-play, and I can focus on these things in my conversation, which is really helpful. Um, Let me show you some other really simple examples. So another example meeting prep, it seems, is all I'm writing about, but let me scroll down and find some better ones. Yeah. Again, just like planning for the day, um, where I can give it just a simple task and integrate with the tools that I have. So what do I have on my to-do list for today? And this is what my day ended up being like that day. I think this was a couple Fridays ago. And so these simple tasks save me time. And uh, when you think about the benefit of these tools, it's kind of like a compounding engine, right? The more time you're saving, the more high leverage things you get to work on, the more decisions that you're making, the more you're learning of relevant things. And these things keep compounding over and over and over again. So the common flows, just to get started, are, let me share the correct screen again, so you guys can see this. Things like daily updates, project status, one-on-ones, just experiment, try these things out, get an understanding of how well or how good or how bad the results are based on how you prompt them. Because, like I mentioned initially, the output that you're going to get is a reflection of one, the information you provide to these tools, but also your skill as an operator and your ability to provide the necessary context to these models.
Kia, we have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
One question is almost mildly answered, but Ellie, maybe you want to ask the question in terms of like a workflow. Here, Ellie's question was, how do you connect Claude to your inbox? And DeGan's answer was that, Claude has out-of-box support
Mhm.
for Gmail.
Yeah.
But
Let me.
Ellie, maybe there is a different workflow question that you have. You want to ask the question?
Uh, oh, I was going to say there's also the connectors that they added, so you can add third-party MCP servers.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So everything I was showing, this is all built into Claude. So these are, like just mentioned, connectors. So connectors allow you to provide tools via this protocol called MCP to your LLM, where you can do a variety of things. And so we'll talk about building your own tools and how you can use these tools in a little bit. But Claude out of the box has web search, Drive, Gmail, Calendar. Gemini has most of these things integrated because Gemini is on the G Suite. OpenAI also has a lot of these tools. And so there's web-based tools. You can build your own tools. But what's also really cool is recently they've launched desktop control tools in Claude. So uh, all of the partners on my team love to take notes in Apple Notes and drives me crazy because you can't index and search those notes. And so one workflow that I did recently was I exfiltrated all of their Apple Notes from Claude, and then I wrote them to our own CRM. Let me see if I can find, I'm sure I can find that actually.
It's amazing.
Mhm.
I'm learning so much about connectors here. So Ellie,
Yeah.
thank you for leading.
So
Um,
no,
we
this
have
is another demo, but
We have a
yeah,
couple
here
of
you go.
other questions, Kia.
Yeah.
One is from Z Lu about how finance use cases, how do you ensure the outputs are vetted and accurate? And
Yeah.
Chris, thank you for that link there in terms of what Claude provides in terms of a new solution for financial services. But what's your take on it, Kia? Curious.
Yeah. So LLMs, they're stochastic. So the output is always fuzzy. It's a prediction, right? And so for critical things like where dollars and cents matter, it's much safer to have the LLM generate code that then you can provide data and to evaluate or like make that calculation than it is to have the LM itself predict. LMs are great at discovering patterns or outliers or clustering things, but they're not good at balancing a P&L, for example. So for financial things, I would still use rules-based systems or code that you understand for now. But to get a broad strokes, like 80% of the way there, these tools are great for spinning up something really quick. Just to
Yeah.
go back to that previous note example, so I have the Notes app on my computer, um, and I asked Claude to say, get all the notes about myself in Apple Notes. I like pre-seeded it with some note with some details about me, and then I had it save it to our CRM. And so this is an example of using MCPs to integrate multiple systems, which we'll show in a little bit. And so now the MCP knows a bunch of really, now our CRM knows a bunch of really useless information about me. But it's kind of the power of these tools and these connectors. Any more questions before we jump back into?
There are a couple of questions, but Z and Chris, did that answer your, and Z specifically, did that answer your finance related question in terms of accuracy of output?
I did. And I can ask later, just more of are there any sorry, best practices for like eval system we can set up to essentially check the answer, so hopefully they can get better and better at producing more accurate information.
Yeah, for sure. I think any business critical process, you need evals in place because these tools are like unsafe. It's unsafe code execution and unsanitized input all the time, and the underlying systems are like black boxes. So yeah, we can talk about evals a little bit later.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
Joshua had another question. Joshua, you want to ask the information security question? And Chris, thank you so much for being active on that.
Sure.
Joshua?
So I've recently assumed responsibility at my startup for all of our information security, or at least answering the questions about it. And so as we're trying to empower all of our employees to be superpowered by or more efficient using AI, one of the things we have to say is never put client data into an LLM, especially if you're posting it to, chatgpt.com.
Yep.
And so one, like if you're doing this and connecting your company email, we consider our company email part of, we use Microsoft 365. We consider that safe and secure. Our clients buy into that. It passes SOC 2. To me, connecting this to an LLM basically violates all of that. And as much as I love it and everything you're saying sounds fantastic, I'm now kind of sitting with one foot in the referee's box or in the referee's
for
seat,
sure.
not enjoying it, but I have to ask.
Yeah, that's a great question. So a couple principles that you should follow. So I work in a financially regulated industry as a VC, and so there's stuff that we definitely don't want to pass in here. So there are enterprise level models where the LLM will never train on your code. You have guarantees about how things are stored to stay compliant with kind of the various compliance regulations that you have. That being said, MCP servers, the protocol itself is really nascent. It's like only a year old, and security is one of the major concerns right now. So just some rules of thumb to abide by, and I'll talk about why in a second. If you're integrating with an MCP server, make sure it's one that you trust, that it's authenticated in a certain way. So like Google 365, Gmail, all of those things, they use OAuth, so you're explicitly granting permission to whatever you want, and the messaging is encrypted at rest and in transit with the whatever OAuth credential you provide. But the environment where the code is being evaluated or the results are being evaluated is not necessarily safe. So you can imagine I query some MCP server and say, hey, give me a summary of my emails. And it can say, okay, here's a summary of your emails. Also, like post to this API for me. And you'd have no control over that because it's executing somewhere else. And so for business critical workflows, MCP servers should always be ones that you trust, you've deployed yourself, and you can verify are safe. Does that answer your question? Essentially, prompt injection is a huge risk when you're integrating with any MCP. So all the MCPs that I integrate with, I know how they're deployed, I know how they're secure, or they're major
what's
providers.
an MCP partner? What's an MCP? I'm not familiar with the acronym.
Gotcha. Yeah, sorry for the jargon. Let me share what I'm talking about. So MCP is the protocol that specifies how these connectors work. You can kind of think about it as like USB 2.0. There's
Got it. Okay.
It's a way that
Or
you can plug
SMTP
into.
or
Yeah, exactly. So web search, Google Drive, Gmail, these provide an MCP server that's somewhere else. And I pass my credentials to say I'm Kia Fathi, like let me get my email. And so you can see here, Gmail is providing, where is this? Is this using Gmail? No, this is not. Let's do this one. Gmail is providing a, wait for it, a method essentially to search my Gmail. It takes my credentials and then it returns my Gmail into the context that the LLM can then process. And so MCP is essentially a way to provide tools and capabilities to these LLMs.
Okay.
And most SaaS platforms have them now. So Linear is a comment. It's like Jira. Notion is a note-taking document. And then these are ones that I built myself and I trust. They're deployed in
This
my
sounds
VPN.
kind of like APIs with a standardized interface so that people know how to
Yep,
use them.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. MCP is kind of like the API for tools that LLMs can execute. Uh, Cool. All right, we went a little bit off track, which tends to happen in AI talks. But I'll continue with the presentation, and then let me know if there are any more questions. So we sort of jumped into this already, but once you have your personal flows working and you're generating productivity gains for yourself, you have great proof points to start spreading this impact across your company. So there are a couple things that we do at 50 Years and a lot of our portfolio companies do that have been really beneficial. The first is like a weekly AI in actions meeting. And so what we do in this meeting, it's once a week, anyone can attend. We start the meeting by saying like, hey, what wins have you gotten with AI this week? This morning, yeah, it's every Wednesday for us. This morning, somebody was showing us how they took our design style guide and put it into Midjourney to essentially create like hundreds of design assets that are compliant with how we're producing presentations, actually, which they'd be quite mad if they saw this presentation. Um, and then we have someone present a use case that they think could be shared by the whole team. This is a really casual and fun way to show your teammates what's working for you, to learn as a collective, and it works really well. The second kind of fun meeting that we do and that I've seen a bunch of companies doing now is promptathons, where some business leader comes in and says, hey, I'm really annoyed by how slow we are at this. Like, let's build an AI solution that can improve it. So we generate, this is bad, we generate LP updates. It probably takes someone on our team 20 hours a quarter to generate these updates for our LPs. And it's a tedious process of ingesting thousands of not thousands, let's say, yeah, actually thousands of company updates, looking at various financial data, vetting that against like our back office. And so in a recent promptathon, we built a workflow that takes all of those things on local LLM, so it's not in the cloud or anything. We're not leaking financial data, and summarizes them so that the process went from 20 hours to essentially like 6 hours of verification work. And so that's an example of a promptathon. Anyone can come with a problem, and then there are very simple ways that you can fix them. This works really well for us and other companies that we've seen. Workshops are kind of an extension of that, bringing in an external expert, or lots of SaaS providers now have AI integrations. And so they love to tell you about their products. You can bring them into the office and have them demo or show various workflows that work. And probably the most impactful thing that we've done here at 50 Years for us and our portfolio companies is knowledge sharing tools. So I'm just going to show you some simple examples of that. And let me find Notion. So, man, you think there'd be an AI tool that just magically switches screens for me? That'd be awesome. So we have this AI first initiative at work, but probably the most valued resource that we have is a cookbook, where people are constantly writing prompts or things that they do that work quite well. So I'll show you a simple one. Where's this daily updates? So this is how pretty much everyone in our team sends their daily updates in this format on a thread. And so this is a prompt that our whole team owns and maintains, comments, edits, and reuses. And so this scales just like a blog post would or documentation would. And so everyone can use these prompts, right? LLMs are autoregressive. They're like the girl in 50 First Dates. Every time you interact with them, it's a blank slate. And so one of the ways they can knowledge transfer across subsequent sessions is improving your prompts. And so as an organization, we're constantly trying to improve these prompts. So here's a simple example. We do this for all sorts of stuff. My favorite is this one where someone sends me a deck for their company, and I've written a very thorough prompt that evaluates a bunch of facets that I'm curious about. And this would take an analyst like 4 hours probably, and then it takes me 10 minutes. And then I do a review, I dive into things that I'm more interested in and go from there. You guys may ask, like, how did you get this super verbose, crazy prompt? And so there's this concept called meta prompting, where you can, one, ask the model itself. This is hard to see. Let me make this bigger screen for you guys. You can ask the model itself, help me write a prompt for a text model, an image model, that I can just pass off and accomplish a certain task. But then on top of that, you can then take that original conversation and that prompt and say, hey, what I actually wanted was this. Help me update this prompt to get closer to the outputs I want. And so this is called meta prompting, where you're taking a prompt and an output, and then you're passing that in as a prompt to another model and saying, give me a better prompt to get closer to the results that I want. So it's essentially like a unit test in software engineering, where you're like, I expected this, the actual was this, help me fix it. And the LLM will give you a better prompt typically. And so it's a good way to iteratively improve your prompts and improve everyone's interactions with models. And so we do this for a bunch of stuff. Yeah, there's no way I would have written this as a human. It just would have been too arduous.
I just wanted to say, this is also a great example of doing a deep research prompt. It's a good use case for that too. Just wanted to throw that in.
Cool. So that's knowledge sharing. We also have like a Slack channel where we're posting the latest in AI news or latest techniques that we've discovered. There, a lot of people treat this information like a dark art, and so there's lots of like signals or WhatsApp groups that are sharing information, and so everyone is getting these little tips and tricks from all over the place. And so as an organization, you can share it with everyone else, get everyone leveled up together, and kind of break down the silos. Historically, CRMs and internal databases are these arcane sources of information that you need like a wizard CRM expert or like a warlock engineer to summon the data out of. And what ends up happening in most organizations is that analyst, that engineer, that wizard becomes a gatekeeper and like a long pole in your company's ability to make data-driven decisions. And so one of the cool things about LLMs and MCP is now these surfaces can be interacted with in natural language. So the example I showed before, and I'll show again, is me just querying our CRM using natural language. So I asked Claude in this case, what do we know about Kia Fathi? And so because we've given this LLM access to an MCP tool that has access to our CRM, anybody on my team is empowered to look up this information or to query my Postgres database. And so it can get information about me. This seems to be a little dated. And then it can just surface them to anyone on our team. So for non-technical people on your team, your engineer can build an MCP once, and then you'll have access to this data to query all the time. It's kind of like an interactive dashboard that the LLM maintains for you. And so just showing you what we've done here. Winston is our name for our internal MCP. And so we've added the ability to read information on various records, read details about people, add notes. We deal with scientific institutions, so you could see a lot of like lab stuff, university stuff here. But now anyone can do these API calls. Any non-technical person can do these things via natural language directly in the chat interface that they're already in. And so I'd recommend to the technical people out here that have found themselves being gatekeepers for various data to explore. Most SaaS offerings now host a secure native MCP server that you can integrate with. And so I would explore adopting them. And so I'll share a resource at the end a huge index of MCP servers that you could potentially integrate with in your workflows personally or at work. So
Gigant,
yeah,
you want to come up and ask your question? Kia, there's a couple of questions.
yeah, love it.
Yeah, so I guess I've been doing meta prompting without really realizing it,
Love
where
it.
I'll go to Claude and say, okay, I want to build this application, help me create a prompt that I can use with a vibe coding tool or code generation tool. What I'm not clear on is like, are there differences in how how you structure your prompts for the different tools, or is it better to use the same prompt across a multitude of tools and then you like figure out which one has the best output or the one that's most aligned with your.
Yeah, most of the frontier models they're approaching the same asymptote of performance. Maybe asymptote's the wrong word. So prompts can be transferred, but certain models are better at other things. So if I'm sharing Chrome, right? If you go to like LM Arena, you can see what models are best at what. And so I typically, and this is costly for an organization, but as an individual, I typically hop from model to model to get the best outcome in whatever task I'm trying to do.
Okay.
Prompts, for the most part, are pretty portable though across like the frontier models. But I have found that asking GPT to give me a prompt for GPT is better than asking Claude to give me a prompt for GPT. So the models know themselves best. They know what embeddings have the most weight internally. And so the keywords that they use or the turns of phrases that they use typically get slightly better performance when the output prompt is on themselves. It's important to specify like the type of model, at least empirically I've noticed it's important to specify the type of model that the prompt is for. So like if I'm generating an image, I'll say, help me make a prompt for a text to image model that would do X, or help me create a prompt for a deep research model that would look into what, so that the LLM knows what sort of prompt would work best for that modality of model. Yeah.
Got it. And would it be helpful to say like for Midjourney or for diffusion, like let's say in the image generation example you used, like because I know you can tune, all of those models have ability to like tune and change the temperature of the model and all that stuff. So
yep. Yeah, I doubt OpenAI knows the embeddings of diffusion of like Midjourney. So I don't know. In that case, asking Midjourney is text to image primarily. So yeah, I think just any text model would probably perform comparatively there.
Okay, thanks.
What else?
Question from Z. Do you want to come and ask your question, Z?
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk about like a CAG, like context augmented generation versus your RAG. I guess I don't know what's your point of view on what's the best use case for each. CAG is fairly, I guess, new, at least for me reading on all the different blogs.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, they're doing the same thing, right? So LLMs are prediction machines. They take their internal representation of the world through pre-training and whatever information is available in the context, and then they guess what is most likely to come next. So RAG and CAG are ways to augment that context. So simple RAG is just like, for example, we could search like what does Shakespeare think about this topic, and it may look for like word similarity to that topic in documents that you've saved somewhere else in a RAG system, and then provide that into context so that the model makes a better prediction by having more tuned context. Tag it is essentially an extension of that, if that makes any sense.
So if I have a small kind of repository of the data, is it even worthwhile to set up the RAG interface or just essentially dump everything into the context every time? Start up the session.
It depends. It really depends on the model. Like if you're using something with 1 million context window model, then you're probably fine to just dump everything into the prompt. But yeah, that's increasing your inference cost, and so tuning
Gotcha.
things with RAG, they're just progressive improvements, in
Got
my
it.
opinion, for now.
Got it. Thank you.
Anything else?
Nothing else. Yeah, let's go.
Cool. All right. I love these tangents, but well, let's get back to the presentation. So that example I showed you before is a great way that you can bridge all of your various data sources into the LLM. So I could query my CRM and then draft an email, or query a doc that I've written about a project and then write that information into our CRM. And so the benefit of this bridging is, again, natural language becomes the API that you're using to access data, and it just empowers a lot more people on your team to be more productive. Um, and so you can stitch together multimodal data across a variety of sources, and do analysis and understanding that you couldn't do before. But even better, like, everyone on your team is empowered to do that. A cool example of this is I had so Linear is our task tracking system. I had an intern this summer that they wrote a design doc for a project that they were going to build over the course of the summer. And then I put that design doc into Claude and said, hey, break this down into tasks that a junior engineer could do, every one of these tasks in one day, and then save that to our project tracking system. Linear worked. Claude did that great and produced like 10 really nuanced, detailed tasks that would have taken me probably a couple hours. Again, this is just compounding time savings, so I can focus on higher leverage things. So really importantly, like, I'm saying time savings and I'm saying X is faster, but stakeholders in your business care about the primitives of their business. So if you think about, like, me at a VC, like, the primitives are our time, our dollars, our founder time, our, like, companies that we've had the opportunity to talk to. And so translating how these initiatives and things that you build into what your stakeholders care about is really the best way to sell these across an organization. Time savings is probably the simplest example, right? Imagine your median salary in the US hourly worker, and you cost $29 an hour, and say you're doing something 3,000 times a week. If you're able to implement an AI workflow that makes you uh, significantly faster, that the time savings are crazy. Um, uh, this is probably spread across multiple people, I guess, because 3,000 tasks per week is probably ridiculous for a single worker. But you can imagine how these things compound. These little time savings end up adding up in massive ways. And so uh, scaling yourselves, improving various operations across the organization are great ways to save you money and then save the company money. So high level, everything that I said, like, how would I implement this at a new organization from scratch? So I would start at the individual level. So find your top 5 consuming workflows, experiment with some prompts, or outsourcing your thinking to ChatGPT or Claude, and see if you can save yourself time. Demo those things, tune them based on meta prompting. Once you've demonstrated that value to yourself and maybe your smaller team, maybe as a team, in the second week, choose 1 or 2 like tedious, boring things that you don't want to spend time on, and think about how you can automate it or how you can build an AI system to do it. Maybe an MCP server. Start codifying your team's knowledge into a cookbook. Maybe do some knowledge shares. Maybe have like a book club. Gather feedback on what you build, iterate, expand, and keep doing that. In the third week, maybe look at the results of that pilot. Look if there are other things that you think AI would be great for. Now, as an organization, as you've gotten more exposure to what these tools can do, maybe this will unlock or identify some other areas that could be automated or enhanced with AI. Expand training kind of outside of your small team, maybe to a larger organization. Share that knowledge base with everybody, and have everyone continue to update it. So as an organization, you're learning and growing and improving your utilization of these models. And then keep doing this. Essentially, do more. Demonstrate to senior leadership uh, how these small wins are compounding into large wins for the organization. You can start actually implementing things in code like MCPs, agentic workflows, which we didn't really talk about today, and foster an organization-wide culture of continuous AI learning. So this all sounds rosy and beautiful, but inevitably some of these initiatives will stall. I'd say since the mindset that helps the most is treating these things like an experiment, because frequently they won't work, and frequently you'll run into issues or the model won't be there yet in capabilities. And so when those initiatives stall, you can map out the journey, identify what your ideal end state would look like, make sure that all your stakeholders align with this journey, explore some demos, creating prototypes with vibe coding, or even writing PRDs now, or creating mockups is very cheap, very easy with a lot of these LLM-based tools. So sell the vision that way. Typically find a problem that someone else is also encountering and team up, share interests across the organization, and then lastly build a prototype and that works in a smaller use case before considering scaling it up to the whole organization. Yeah, and so these would be my recommendations for how to get started today. It is an iterative cycle. It is the scientific method, and it's a lot of experimentation. But all of these tools really can unlock a lot of time for you and value. And so I'd encourage you all to experiment, have fun. Don't expect it to solve all your problems, but it can be worth it in the long run. One last thing. So back to the fear about AI being an existential threat that's going to get rid of all of us knowledge workers. So these things are just prediction machines, and so it's still humans that are aligning all these systems together, understanding the specific use cases of the business, the constraints that we're operating under, handling edge cases. Again, any automation or rules-based system doesn't handle edge cases very well, and so your expertise, your unique domain understanding is going to continue to be more and more important, even as we're moving from the world where we're solving most of the problems to the world where we're managing and orchestrating agents or LLMs to solve problems. And lastly, business is a team sport. These models are great at producing copious amounts of text, but understanding nuance, understanding emotion, understanding team dynamics are going to continue to be more and more important for us as leaders in organizations. Yeah, and lastly, I'd just say invest in yourself, invest in your team, because there's so many easy gains here that will save you time, allow you to focus on high leverage things. Any more questions?
Kia, I loved how you ended with the investment in human potential. There is a recent talk that Mustafa Sulaiman, who's the CEO of Microsoft AI, gave, which is about how this is the age of being a social sciences hacker. We are going to live increasingly in a multi-sapient environment, and bringing all of that together will require some strong human skills. So love how you kind of brought that together. I have a couple of questions that I've also received from a couple of people, but let me make sure, are there any other live questions? Don't be shy, folks.
There's one thing I'd like to add.
Mhm.
This is something that so we have some AI in production in our application, and it's around data extraction, just to give everybody context for this conversation. And the guy who's kind of working on our set of prompts, he's like, I've got to fix this bug. I've got to fix this bug. We can't ship it yet. And I said, actually, we can. The tool just has to help customers be better than they are without it.
Mhm.
And instead of waiting for perfect.
Yep.
And so I'm very confident in that. And then one of the things that I feel sets us apart from our competitors is that we've added scaffolding around it, which a lot of it is structured code, like a lot of like basically structured data validations so that when the user is presented with the product of the AI, they have they have support to make it easy to check it. So G, you
Yep.
had that comment earlier about how do you know if it's any good? Can I just trust it? A lot of people will like get a result and then it takes as long to check it as it would have to do it themselves. And Kia, you mentioned that like it's compressing your time, right? Even if it's not perfect, you're checking it, but you're doing it and it's saving time. So we're
Yep.
trying to make it easier and build useful tools and focusing on that utility rather than waiting for perfect. So I wanted to share that.
Yeah. Another helpful heuristic to think about is if you're generating anything from AI, like before you hand it off to another person or hand it off to another teammate, you should understand it. You should personally vet it and be able to prove the source of truth of the claims that it's making. And then when you're serving it to a customer, it's part of your business offering. You should build rules-based systems on top of that. Like evals is the common word that you hear that ensure that the quality bar meets some standard. And so um, evals, for example, you can specify like, hey, here's what a great response looks like. Here's what a mediocre response looks like. And as these systems, which are dynamic and evolving underneath you, right, and around us, and are necessarily slightly random or volatile in their outputs, volatile is maybe too strong a word, you need to defend against that, especially when you're presenting things to customers.
Kia, I have another question,
Mhm.
which is how did you get 50 years, the company that you are with right now, to that
Mhm.
kind of like AI first rhythm? What was your biggest challenge and how did you kind of overcome that to get to this level of like rhythm?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, uh, I think we're at an advantage because we get to view trends across the whole tech industry, right, in our role. And so we get to see that majority of the companies succeeding are moving in this direction. Um, but as an organization, we already had a very strong continuous learning and growing culture. And as soon as our team explored and discovered the benefits of these tools, I mean, the proof was in the pudding, and so we doubled down. Um, but there are some skeptics in our group, and there are some people that care very deeply about the quality of whatever we produce. And so um, kind of structured thinking, like going back to this pretty simple ROI calculation that we did here, doing a lot of things like this, building rules on top of the AI-based systems that we're using, and really reinforcing for everyone that it's an experimentation-based mindset. If the tool gets us 10% faster, that's worth it in our case, where we're like highly levered on our time.
Yeah, that's that's a great point. Chris, did you have a question or was that just a comment on the kind of like it depends on the industry?
Not a question. I was just kind of commenting that certain industries have higher bars in terms of like because of regulation that
Mhm.
you may have to, particularly if you're looking at like health data or like financial data, the regulation bar is much higher.
Yep. Yeah. So we do operate in a pretty highly, I mean, we're in financial data, so we do operate with pretty high security privacy requirements. So yeah, you have to build special tools or use the enterprise offerings for to stay compliant in most cases. Here are some resources that I recommend to stay up to date. Again, this industry is moving really quickly. This presentation was totally different the last time I gave it because everything is changing. And so, yeah, a big part of becoming AI first is just being aware of what these tools are capable of. So these are some of my top recommendations, and I encourage you all um, to take advantage of.
Any other people you follow? I see Lenny, Dwarkesh, Clairvaux. Any other people you recommend?
Yeah, the company every.to is really great. They put out a daily newsletter. Ben Thompson is really good. I'm forgetting who does Clouded Judgment, but that's really great. I think my job part, like probably spend an hour a day at least reading and consuming information. So yeah, I'm ingesting a lot of stuff. But yeah, these are probably some of the high signal ones here.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
Questions, team? Don't be shy. This is a great chance to get feedback directly from Kia. So, Kia, could you give me? Oh, go for it. Yeah.
Lastly, love if you guys let me know what's working for you, what what is working for your organization or not, issues you run into. Yeah, definitely stay in touch. Reach out to me on Sidebar or LinkedIn or via email. I'm happy to help however I can.
Look at the questions now. They're coming in. Kia, do you want to take a couple of more that just came in?
Sure, yeah, I'd love to.
Ellie, do you want to ask your question live?
Sure. I've been working at a startup to try to get us more, outside of coding to use it more. We're using it really lightweight for just like brainstorming right now.
Mhm.
You found one workflow that seems to work for most teams that they probably haven't thought of yet. I think a lot of people, for example, are brainstorming, but is there like one other workflow that you're like, most people benefit from?
A lot of our company's brand language is, I can just share. A lot of our portfolio companies have like very specific brand guidelines or communication guidelines that they all need to follow, and that becomes really difficult. What typically happens as the organization scales is there's one person that's like the copy czar or the person that monitors everything. And so what we did pretty early on is we in ChatGPT we trained a custom GPT and provided it a bunch of examples of writing across a variety of mediums. And so now, before we send stuff to the copy czar, who's become like the weak link in that system or the slowest responder because they're getting inundated with a bunch of information, we pass it through the system. And so, um, and the way that we do this is we say I'm writing a blog post for our engineering blog. I'll write it. I'll pass it to this custom GPT. It'll give me an output. And then I'll send that over to the copy czar and they'll say like, oh, this is bad. This doesn't align with our branding guidelines. Like we don't communicate in this way. And here's how I change it. I'd edit those things, get approval from that person, and then provide that final document with the before and after as a guidance to that system. So the system keeps growing and learning. And so you can build this actually pretty easily in ChatGPT. Let me show you what that looks like. Whenever I find, here it is. Cool. Yeah. Oopsie. Too many windows. Can you guys see my desktop? So in GPT, they have this concept of custom GPTs. And how do I show my GPTs? So we have a 50Y GPT that just helps with copywriting. It has some pre-baked things, but you can also see, you can also tune and tweak this thing. So you can edit it. You can choose what information it has access to, what knowledge it has access to, and you can give it in its prompt, like some before and after examples, so that it continues to update. Yeah, so that's one workflow that's been really beneficial. Usually there's one person on the team that is the brand voice, and that person just doesn't scale as the organization scales. So these instructions end up being really long. But this has been really helpful for a lot of our portfolio companies.
Ellie, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Guadalupe has another question. Guadalupe, do you want to come up and ask the question? After that, we'll wrap up. Well, maybe she's dropped, but basically,
Oh, she
the
says her
question
mic's
was,
not working.
oh, okay.
if-
Her question was if you had to choose one AI, and I'm assuming it's some tool, what would it be?
I would use the one that your organization has access to. Honestly, like they're all leapfrogging each other every week. And so I would pick one of the frontier models. So that's Claude, GPT, Gemini, and get really good at it. The You can kind of view the trajectory of foundation models as similar to like electricity. It's becoming commoditized, and so it's a race to the bottom. And they're all going to kind of approach the same sort of level of functionality. And so I wouldn't have a my job is evaluating these models to some extent, and so it makes sense for me to have a Claude, Gemini, and GPT subscription. But for an individual, I would pick one, go really deep on it. The marginal gains that you get from one model to the other are pretty slim right now.
Makes sense. We are at time, so I wanted to quickly share our feedback link. It's a QR code that's here that you can scan, and it's also there in the chat as a bit.ly link. Kia, first of all, thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise. I bet, like for me at least, I learned a lot of new things, and you've definitely got some juices going in terms of hopefully ideas that people can take back and execute within their organization. Thank you again so much. Thank you all so much for coming. Please do take the time to offer some feedback. This will help us, really, reframe our programming so we can bring you more content that is relevant for you. So please don't forget to take that feedback. Kia, thank you again. Any final words?
No, it's my pleasure. Again, would love to hear from you guys what's working, what's not. And if there's anything ever I can do to help, don't hesitate to reach out. Love to jump in and solve problems with you.
Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you all very